The amendment that's before us now says, well, maybe we don't want to be that tough when it comes to employees. We don't want to give that judge that discretion to take away the whole pension. What's the message, folks? Are we tough on ethics? Not going to tolerate it anymore? It's an outrage. We're going to make people pay for what they did wrong? If that's the case, if that's the attitude, why would we lower the standard for men and women who happen to be employees who all of us know might be in positions that are far more powerful and far more accessible to the public trust and public funds than those that we have as public officials? Why would we do that and then say we're tough on ethics? There's a second consequence to passing this amendment. The second consequence to passing this amendment is that if we pass this amendment, we are practically guaranteeing we will do no ethics bill. None. Because the bill in Senate A has unanimously been passed by the Senate. It has been agreed to be signed by the governor. Again, I'll speak for the 44 members on this side of the aisle ready to vote for it. And all we need to do is pass it out of this chamber as is, and it becomes law. That's all we need to do. If we put this amendment on it, you know the way it works. It's going to go back to the Senate. There's 7 days left. We got a budget that's out of whack. There's hundreds of bills on the calendar. What do you think the odds are this will become law? Now, when that happens, when we adjourn on May 7th, are we going to show shock and outrage, disappointment, that unfortunately we couldn't get together to pass true ethics reform? And you know what the excuse is going to be? We had to change the bill to make it less harsh on public employees. And that's why we don't have an ethics bill. I don't want to go back home and say that. I don't think you want to go back home and say that. You know, I got to tell you something. If this difference between the amendment that's before us and Senate Amendment A that we passed was a substantive, philosophical difference, retroactivity, for instance, or something else, you know what? Legitimate. You'd have to say, hey, that's a philosophical difference that the majority of one chamber has with the majority of another chamber. That's fair game. But what are we changing? We're actually making it less strict, knowing the highest probability that we'll end up with nothing. Nothing. I want to see those end of session reports. The House acted on Ethics Committee in disagreement with the Senate. Therefore, unfortunately, we had none. The reason is we tried to make it less strict, but unfortunately, they wouldn't go along with it, so we end up with no law. That's a tough one. That's a tough one.